Can you believe it's been 13 years since the last side-scrolling Metroid game? 13 years! So it's pretty fitting that the first new installment in all that time, being Metroid Samus Returns, has a title that seems acutely aware of that fact. And like the previous side-scrolling game, Samus Returns is also a reimagining of a past Metroid title, being Metroid 2: The Return of Samus, from the original Game Boy. Although, based on the 75 minutes I spent with the game at a recent preview event in San Francisco, Samus Returns almost feels like less of a reimagining and more of an entirely new experience. Because, while the premise and overall structure is the same, with Samus being tasked to visit the Metroid homeworld to exterminate them once and for all, pretty much everything else has been overhauled to the point that it's almost unrecognizable. Even just speaking visually, it looks like a brand new Metroid game, as it's the first side-scrolling one to be made using 3D assets, which ensures that the cavernous underground passages truly look the part, a sensation that's enhanced even farther by the stereoscopic 3D, which impressed even these 3D jaded eyes. In a way, it also further heightens the sense of isolation, as it further separates Samus from the background. Samus also now moves with a fluidity not seen outside of the 3D games, now including the ability to aim with 360-degree accuracy, which removes the occasionally awkward shuffling from the past Metroid games in order to line up your shots with the enemies. So whether you're gunning while running, standing still, or even clinging from a ledge, it feels really good. And speaking of feeling good, Samus has a brand new ability too, in the form of a powerful counterattack, allowing her to fight off enemies at close range by swinging her arm. But the catch is, it requires near-perfect timing, which introduces an interesting risk versus reward mechanic. Do you try and go for the more powerful counter at the risk of screwing up the timing and taking damage? Or do you try and stay back and attack from a safe distance, which is also slower? Both are viable options in most cases, but the counter is pretty useful when being assaulted by dive-bombing bats, or when taking on any of the myriad Metroids, as successfully landing a counter will then let you open fire on them freely for a few seconds. And there are a lot of Metroids to track down, 40 of them in fact, and like in the original game, your progress through the world is gated until you hunt them all down in the local area first, thereby causing the acid to recede, which then allows you to venture deeper into the planet's murky depths. Now back on the Game Boy, the game didn't provide any kind of indicator of how many Metroid you had to find in each area. But this time you'll find actual gates, that when activated reveals exactly how many Metroid you need to find. And it even adds a counter to the touchscreen as a persistent reminder. Now tracking down Metroids could be a little bit frustrating in the original game due to the complete lack of indication as to where they were hiding. But this time, the Metroid counter will begin to beep whenever you get close to one, growing faster the closer you get. In fact, navigation has been greatly improved in general, largely due to the fact that you now finally have a map, which is something that the original game lacked entirely, besides whichever one you may have drawn yourself. And since the map resides on the touchscreen, consulting it has never been easier. It's always right there, and as you might expect, it works pretty much like the map in any of the more recent Metroids, filling in room by room. However, if you're stuck or just want some additional guidance, Samus has another new ability in the form of the Scan Pulse that permanently reveals any nearby rooms or hidden areas on the map. But of course, it's still up to you to figure out how to get to them. It's super useful and super optional for you Metroid purists. And on top of all of this, you'll now also find teleporters in each sector that allow Samus to instantly warp between regions, which should help make traversing from one end of the map to the other a little bit less tedious. Now even with all these additions and changes, rest assured that Samus Returns still feels like a classic Metroid title. I mean, I found myself completely stuck on 2 separate occasions. That is until I bombed literally every square inch of the room to find a secret exit. Yeah, this really is a classic Metroid game through and through. Which also means it's no pushover, as I died multiple times during my playthrough, sometimes by enemies, and other times by wandering into areas I clearly shouldn't be yet. But if you find the game too difficult, you can make things a little bit easier on yourself by scanning in one of the 4 supported Amiibo, which will net you things like extra tanks for your energy, missiles, and ion energy. But be warned that once you've activated any of those 3, there's no going back, as they're permanently locked to your save file, meaning you may want to think twice before using them if you want the purest experience. And as a bonus, these Amiibo will also unlock new things to check out in the game's gallery, but only after you beat the game. And if you scan in the new Metroid Amiibo, the game will highlight exactly where to find the closest Metroid on your map. It's pretty handy. And the Metroid Amiibo is also the only way to unlock Fusion Mode, which lets Samus play through an even harder difficulty than Hard Mode while wearing her fusion suit. But again, this only works after you've beaten the game, which I was of course nowhere close to achieving for my 75 minutes of playtime. But what I do know from that time is that I was truly digging what I played. This is finally the return of classic old-school Metroid, but smartly updated in what appears to be all the right ways. It looks great, especially in 3D, Samus controls beautifully, particularly with her 360-degree aiming, navigation's been much improved, thank God, And I was already finding myself addicted to tracking down every weapon and collectible that I could find. And I'm sure I still missed a bunch. So yeah, I really can't wait to play more. And fortunately, we don't have long to wait since the game launches on September 15th. And with that, thanks for watching, and of course make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Metroid Samus Returns and everything else Nintendo too. Catch you later, bye.